Hey listeners, leading across your ego. What an interesting title of an episode. Here's the thing. Your ego wants control, validation, and to be right. But true leadership, it demands humility, growth, and putting others first. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to lead across your ego, not from it. Let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Welcome to the Ask Denis episode. This is a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts, experiences, and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. Hey there, and welcome back to the Leadership is Changing podcast, the Ask Denis episodes. And I'm your host, Denis Gianoutsos, and it's great to have you with me. Whether you're on a walk, whether you're driving, or sitting somewhere, thanks for tuning in. Today I want to dive into a topic that sits at the core of leadership, but one that often goes unspoken. It's called leading across your ego. But let's be real. Every leader has an ego. You and I, we both have an ego. It's not always a bad thing. Your ego is that voice that says, come on, step up, take charge, be seen. But if it's left unchecked, it becomes the very thing that holds you back from truly leading. The question is, what is ego in leadership? The ego wants to protect you. It wants to be right and it wants to win. But leadership isn't about always being right. It's about doing what's right. Now, insecure egos create reactive leaders. Secure leaders, on the other hand, know how to step across their ego, to listen more, to serve more, and to think beyond themselves. Now, your ego can be a helpful ally when it's in check. It gives you that drive, the ambition, and the energy to show up strong. But when the ego takes over, it starts protecting image over impact. Leaders start performing instead of connecting. They become defensive, controlling, and overly focused on looking good rather than doing good. So true leadership demands that we recognize when the ego is speaking and to lead, and choose to lead anyway, across the noise, across the fear, and across the insecurity. So how does the ego show up in leadership? Let me give you some real life examples. Maybe you've seen these or experienced them yourself. The leader who won't admit they're wrong, even when the facts say otherwise. Another example is the leader who talks more than they listen. What about the leader who hoards credit but deflects blame? In other words, they take all the credit, but when there's something wrong and it's their fault, they'll point the finger at other people. The leader who sees feedback as a threat rather than a gift. Because you see, feedback is important, but it's not what getting the feedback is, what you do with it is what really counts. Does this sound familiar to you? When ego runs the show, leaders make decisions based on emotion, not strategy. They prioritize personal comfort over team performance. They tend to seek approval, not alignment. And here's the catch. Ego is sneaky. It often shows up masked as confidence or decisiveness. So even though you see someone who's really confident, that doesn't mean that, they are. The ego might be starting to sneak up and take over. But confidence listens. Ego dominates. Confidence creates space. Ego takes up space. So the question to ask yourself is this: where is my ego showing up? Without me realizing it. So where's my ego showing up without me realizing it? Because the moment you spot it, you can take back control. And that's when you can lead from your values, not from your vulnerabilities. The other thing is leading across the ego. What does that look like? Because it's an interesting statement, but it's an actually interesting title as well. And so it means when choosing growth over comfort, it means creating the space for others to speak, to shine, and to lead. It means you pause, breathe, and respond instead of reacting. It means being humble enough to ask, what do you think? And here's the kicker. You don't lose influence when you do this. You gain it. So what I'm trying to say here is that the kicker is you don't lose influence when you do this. You gain it. People trust you more. They lean in. They want to follow you because they feel seen, heard, and respected. When you lead across your ego, in other words, you're stepping over it to lead, you stay curious instead of defensive. You uplift others rather than compete with them. You focus on the bigger picture, the team, the mission, the legacy. It's not about playing small, but it's about playing real. Because authenticity, not authority, is what creates sustainable leadership. People don't follow titles, they follow trust. 3 practical ways that I actually want to share with you right now to lead across your ego. And you can start doing this today. So here's the number one. Number one is to create a pause between trigger and response. Now, what do I mean by that? When something triggers you, don't react. Step back. Give yourself a moment. Great leaders don't fire from the hip. They lead from intention. So take a breath and ask yourself, is this about me or the mission or the bigger picture? That pause gives you the power to respond instead of reacting. That's the emotional discipline. That's leadership maturity. Number 2 would be invite feedback regularly. Don't wait for annual reviews. Ask your team this. What can I do better as your leader? It's not a weakness, it's about wisdom. Because only leaders who invite the truth can grow in it. Feedback helps you find your blind spots. And all of us have blind spots. It helps you strengthen relationships and a role model for what growth looks like. And when your people see you doing that, it gives them the permission to do the same. Number 3 will be, remember it's not about you. Leadership is not about your ego. It's about your impact. Your role is to create the conditions for others to thrive. So every day, remind yourself, am I here to serve, not to impress? I'm here to serve, not to impress. When you put your team first, when you focus on outcomes instead of optics, when you lead with humility and you show you care about them, that's when people will go the extra mile for you. Here's some final thoughts. I want you to take a moment and ask yourself this. Where is my ego getting in the way of my leadership? And I really want you to start taking some notes on what you're thinking about, what you notice, what you observe, because it's a strong question. Here it is again. Where is my ego getting in the way of my leadership? Knowing that we still need to have ego. Don't get me wrong, we need it because it helps drive us. But if it's unchecked, as I said earlier on, it can get in the way. Because here's what I know. The moment you become aware of it, that's when you can cross over it or step over it, if you want to put it that way. And when you do, that's when you unlock a level of leadership that few will ever reach. Leadership is changing, and the leaders who are winning today are the ones who lead with humility. They have self-awareness and a desire to serve. That's how you build trust, and that's how you build a legacy, and that's how you lead across your ego. Listeners, if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, I'd love you to leave a rating and a review on the podcast because it helps us reach more leaders like you around the world. Hey, remember, keep showing up with courage. Lead with intention. And remember, leadership is changing. Are you? All right, listeners, your call to action this week is if you want to book a 30-minute strategy call with me, go to my website, leadingchangepartners.com, to book a call. And all you need to do is click on the link on the little button that says book a call, and you'll be sent a booking system, and you can click the day and the time, and it'll go both into our calendars. The link is also available in the show notes down below. Hey, listeners, that's it for this episode. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining me on the Leadership is Changing podcast. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.